Good morning. I'd like to call the March 10th County Board of Commissioner meeting to order. The first item is roll call. Roll would indicate all 5 commissioners are present. Please rise and join me in a moment of silence and a pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Our first item is to approve the agenda. Mike, any additions, corrections?
No changes, Mr. Chair.
Okay, anyone else? If not, we'd be looking for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Persky.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the agenda indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next up is the consent agenda. I don't think there's any additions besides the 17 that are on our list this morning. And again, most of the consent agenda items, we do go through them, look at them, review them, and if we have questions, we can pull items that are on here. What are the wishes of the board? Commissioner Johnson?
I'd like to pull E1 for a minute and E7.
E1 and E7.
I'll move approval of E1, the approval of the minutes from the last meeting.
You'll move approval? Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, how about we do the rest of them? And
That's
then,
right.
Okay. So we'll look for approval of consent items with the exception of E1 and E7.
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Would you like to address E1?
I would. I'll move
Commissioner?
approval of E1.
Okay, got a motion?
Second.
And a second? Further discussion?
I just have a quick question. I looked back, and the issues by commissioners are not recorded in the minutes. And I know that there have been some significant things along the way that we may want to look back on. And I just wondered if we couldn't record just briefly anything that's
Well, we
significant.
certainly can if you like. Typically, the minutes are for what the actions of the board are. So we try to keep dialogue out of it. But, if you want to start doing that, that's certainly up to the board.
Well, I don't feel strongly about it. It's just that there were a few things that I was trying to remember and went to look at the minutes to see if they were there. It's not a big issue.
Commissioner
Mr.
Clark?
Chair?
Commissioner Clark?
You know what?
Just
And Mr. Chair, I was just wondering, Mike, is there, or Randy, is there a way just for us to get an email after just to remind us of what some of those are? Because, yeah, this is an action item agenda, so having actions only from the board makes sense. And as you're just pointing out, unless we're going to start watching the end of every meeting, we might never remember. So maybe that would be a way to deal with it.
And I'm not looking to create work for anybody.
Yeah, we would keep it relatively short so that we could do something like that, sure.
could just be bullet points, if nothing else. Commissioner Persky?
Randy, would it be possible just to have, just short comments about what was talked about? Let's say where there was some drug activity, western part of the county, and I had concerns about it. Okay, well, 3 months later, I bring it up, I thought I heard about some drug activity in western, well, nothing's been documented.
Sure.
So, just a general statement, or can we improve a relationship with Centricare? I heard this about this, and I don't know.
We certainly can do that, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Commissioner Bertram?
I'm not clear, are we talking about adding that in the minutes, or are we talking that as like just a follow-up email report? I don't think they need to be in the minutes,
Yeah.
but a follow-up email with that, I wouldn't be opposed to, but I don't think they need to be in the minutes. So I'm not clear what the,
No,
What
Mr. Chair, I
the
think we were talking about not putting them in the minutes, keeping the minutes as an action a record of action. We do, if there's something that comes up that we need to follow up with, of course, we take note of those notes and follow up. But I think if you want some kind of a record, we should do that less formally than in the minutes.
Mr. Chair, what
Commissioner
about,
Persky.
like, let's say somebody's got an issue and they want to put something on a future agenda. Do we record that?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Persky, I mean, the more formal method to do that is actually to make a motion to put something on the future agenda. A lot of times it's by consensus, and we just put it there.
Right.
But just one board member bringing it up, if there wasn't consensus, then that's not a direction to us to put that on the agenda. So we do need consensus or action.
Okay,
It's clear as mud.
Well, I mean, I think the point is, if one commissioner suggests to put something on the agenda, we might not do that. I mean, unless the whole board wants something on the
Commissioner
agenda.
Persky?
That's why the board approves the agenda to begin the meeting.
Okay, so let's say we have some discussion about the county fair, that, you know, we want to do something out at the county fair. And I make a suggestion, you know, can we find out about perhaps putting a new building out at the county fair? You know, they're looking for something like that. Do we just not record that? I mean,
But I think something like that, we would typically take a look at it and.
you'd probably bring that
come
back as
Yeah.
a.
right,
Bring it
right,
back as
Item.
information.
Yeah.
okay.
I mean, I'd like to think that we don't just ignore comments.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, maybe a suggestion is that, you know,
But
if
some
it
kind of a
seems.
record of, I think it makes sense, some kind of a record of.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, if it seems like it's a topic that there was conversation on, might be worth a note, but I don't know. I agree, again, does it need to be in the minutes?
And Mr. Chair,
Commissioner
I agree with Commissioner Bertram, or Commissioner Bertram's agreeing with me. I'm not sure which one, but I don't think that rises to the minutes, but us having some kind of a record separately makes sense. Again, it's an action.
I mean, sorry, Mr. Chair, the board could, during issues by commissioners, if something comes up, the board wants to take action on, you can. You know, I mean, hopefully it's not something that's major, but it's like to put something on a future agenda or something minor, you can take action at that point too.
Mr. Chair, and then if we take action, it would then be on the
Yes.
minutes, okay.
Okay,
Right.
And just to be
Commissioner
clear,
Bertram?
Mr. Chairman, when would we ask for that action? Under issues by commissioners?
I think that's appropriate, yeah.
Because that's still
the-
fuzzy to me of
there's-
when we can bring issues up or how we can bring
In
them
my
up.
mind, there's two best times to bring something up for a future agenda. That's when you approve the agenda in the beginning. That's why you approve the agenda. You can take things off, you can add things. Or during issues by commissioners, bring something to say, I'd like to have this talked about in the future. And that's happened. Definitely that's happened. And we
Yeah.
put things on the future, but it's typically by consensus of the board.
yeah,
That it's something for a future agenda.
and I would agree, I think if it's something that rises to the top, it might be something at the beginning gets asked to be added to the agenda, where then it can just be a motion somewhere down the road that, yeah, we need further action versus just issues by commissioner.
I
Commissioner Johnson?
apologize for the protracted discussion, for starters.
Oh, no, that's all right.
And I'm glad Randy's a good parliamentarian. I think you guys know what we need.
Yeah.
I don't think we need to do anything now. And if something comes up under issues for commissioners and we are taking it seriously, we'll make a motion.
So I'll work with Mike on how we may want to accomplish this. Yep.
Okay, any further discussion? All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the, what was it, the minutes from the last meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. E7, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you. I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion.
Second.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Clark. We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Commissioner Johnson.
I will vote to approve this. I just wanted to make a few comments. I attended the Planning Commission meeting where they discussed and approved this and made the recommendation to us, and it was very insightful. A couple of things. The members of the Planning Commission did a really good job of studying the issue, of deliberating, of trying to find a balance between a business and the local residents. I actually made a little trek out there and looked at the mining operation and talked with a couple of residents. And there is some conflict, but I think the planning commissioners did a nice job and came up with a modest proposal, if you will. I also think that Angie and her team did a really nice job. They very deftly managed the meeting itself by making sure that people were on track, and I think we should thank them for that. We have some really good people working here. Two things I noted. One is that as part of the proposal, the reclamation of phase one is scheduled such that the ground that is moved from phase two of the mining operation is used for the reclamation of phase one, and so on all the way to the end. There wasn't anything clear about the timing of that, and maybe the environmental services folks know this, but I would argue that the best way to do it would be contemporaneously. If you're mining 4 acres, take the new soil from the second phase and do that reclamation right away. That means people are never in a position of having 20 or 25 or 30 acres open at the same time. I think it's just sort of an appropriate approach. Now, again, I don't know what the arrangement is. I don't know how that works, but I think it's worth working on. The other thing I wanted to mention about it is that the burden on the people who live in that area or who have issues in any area to have to complain in order to get something done seems almost seems wrong to a certain extent. Someone issues a complaint, the police go out there, the sheriff's department goes out there, checks out the complaint, there's money, there's time, there's everything associated with that. And I'm just wondering if, again, the environmental services people who are smart people, if we couldn't figure out a way to sort of monitor on a routine basis these kinds of things, and there are other things, of course, but to monitor these kinds of things. If people are violating the hours of operation for crushing and hauling, if they're not doing it right, it may be the case that we need a fine system. It may be the case that we need some sort of observation. Maybe we need noise detectors. I don't know what it is, but I'm asking if the environmental services people could think about that and remove that burden from the people. I think that's a lot of pressure, and it would be nice if we could come up with a sort of a simple way to relieve both the residents and the sheriff's department, to be honest. So those were my thoughts, and I think this agenda is absolutely, this item is absolutely fine with me. I just wanted to make those observations.
Thanks, Commissioner. And I would say too, it's kind of a respect item that should go both ways. I mean, at some point, if you're the one working the plant or crushing, to be mindful of what's happening around you. Mm-hmm. To be wary that people do have get-togethers. They want to do things outside in the summer, and I think sometimes just being respectful that I know it's a business, and in your business of being profitable and doing what you need to do, but at the same time kind of just looking a little beyond and saying, there are people over here, maybe we need to tell our drivers to, just slow down a little bit and be mindful of your surroundings.
Sure. I will say that Mr. Scepaniak originally wanted 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, and was amenable to making a change in that. And I already referenced that. And so good for the business, good for the residents.
Anybody else have a comment? Commissioner Persky?
Commissioner Johnson, in response to you bringing this up, I think that's one of the reasons we want to have that gathering between the Planning Commission, the commissioners here, and also the Board of Adjustment, to kind of get on the same page about the way we operate. We need to have maybe somewhat of an understanding that, the suggestion of working 24 hours a day on something like that, I don't think anybody here in this room would care to have an activity like that going on in their backyard. And somewhere there's got to be a little bit more consistency and balance about how we're doing that. and making sure that there's a balance between meeting the needs of that neighborhood. Obviously, there were a good number of people that weren't pleased with the operations and the hours of operation. And then, of course, we do have the resource of gravel and the need to have that and use it wisely as well. So, yeah, it's a balance, and oftentimes heads get butted together on that. Yeah. So,
Commissioner Bertram?
Mr. Chairman, I was kind of surprised that Commissioner Notch didn't pull this. I told residents, I'm not pulling it. It's not my district. I'm not going to take the lead on everything, but I would have thought I would have had it pulled if it was in my district to have our own public hearing. I was at the meeting before the last one, and the 24/7 thing really caught me off guard, why someone would think they could operate that. I guess staff always says, and that's somewhat true, applicants can ask whatever they want to ask for, but it's not realistic. We've never done that before. And I go back 16 years ago when I got named to the Planning Commission, it was hit hard on us. Make sure you prevent obvious land use issues. Well, as you've heard me say before, there was a sand pit application in Rockville. 250 people were at the public hearing. That's a different outcome than when we have one in Belgrade or Bruton when nobody comes. So it depends where it is, the surrounding situation. I think the Planning Commission, I watched the last meeting and I was at the meeting before that, did a great job. I think we have a really good Planning Commission now, fully seated and doing site reviews and most of them. So that's going to be helpful. But I think we could have tweaked it further to prevent some of these issues. The township's not happy. A lot of the residents aren't happy. Applicants certainly can ask whatever they want to ask, but again, our role is to minimize and eliminate obvious land use issues and 24/7. And now this rain day is a brand new concept. Never heard that before, and maybe my memory isn't what it used to be, but if you can't operate, you can't operate. We do the limitations on how often or how long you can operate, no holidays, no Sundays, no Saturday, for a reason. And so now to get away from that and have applicants start asking for 24/7 and having rain days, there's 2 on the agenda this month, same concept. So I don't know if that's a new deal now, but I think that's going to create problems if we follow that path of figuring rain days, then you can operate on Saturday. Well, if you're that resident, you don't care if they had a rain day or not. If we can't pick up garbage at 7 o'clock in the morning, that's not your problem. That's not the city's problem. That's our problem. And we need to deal with that. And does it cost us more money? Yes. But again, that's why cities don't allow us to come in the towns before 7 o'clock in the morning, because they don't want noise before that. So putting restrictions on is not trying to hurt businesses or anything. It's trying to prevent obvious land use issues. So, but at this point, obviously, it doesn't sound like we're going to change anything. So,
But understanding, if I would look at it this way, if you're under contract and you're doing a road project and you get 2 weeks of rain, somehow, and you're going to get fined if you don't get that project done, aren't you, going to ask for some way to make that happen? The other thing is I did talk to Albany Township after this, and they weren't overly excited about the outcome, but they can live with it because they know there's multiple gravel pits there. And then I look back to the one on County Road 138 here when we had that big issue with, I think it was Kramer's mining operation by Rockville. And after the residents finally agreed to go out there and they had a noise monitoring machine, and they couldn't believe how quiet that crusher was. That pretty much, because we had pretty contentious public hearings here on that new pit that they wanted to open right along the interstate there. And once the residents agreed to go out there and they listened, they're like, well, I guess this isn't what we thought it was. I mean, I remember years ago, and Scepaniak probably attested, the older machines are probably a lot louder and clunkier and noisier than the new ones. But, I guess I was content after hearing some of the comments that, people aren't happy about it. But again, to Commissioner Persky's comments, I did go through the list of all the ones that we have, and I think a meeting to get consistency on all these operations, whether you're on the east side of Stearns County, west side, or in the middle, would definitely help eliminate some of these issues that keep popping up. because it seems like, different mining operations or pit owners, get different hours and different times to operate. And I know one of the issues has always been grandfathering in, which Shelley and I had a conversation on, which, we have the option, I guess, to work on tweaking that. So, with that being said, I don't know if there's further. Commissioner Johnson?
Mr. Chair, I think, again, in observing the meeting, and I only went out for this one issue, but I think there was an appetite for consistency across all mining operations. I think it was very clear, and so it should be easy to accomplish something like that. And I think in some cases, we're already headed in that direction. The other thing I wanted to mention is that it's not my district. I brought it up because a constituent had alerted me to the issue, and I think about myself as a commissioner for the entire county, and I would invite people, because I'm not going to see everything, I would invite people to comment, to remark, to pull items relative to District 4, because I don't want to miss something. So, and I know we all feel that way, but.
Correct. Commissioner Clark?
Just very quickly, I too just really appreciate what the thoughtfulness, the hard work the Planning Commission is doing. They're also figuring out how to have people in person and remote, and that's great. And they've really gelled in a very short time with new members. Doing the hard work on something like this is hard work, and they're doing it. And it does appear that we are moving closer to having something that is more consistent. And as Commissioner Johnson just said, we are commissioners for the whole, it's not like the legislature. I mean, yes, there's things we need to kind of see when we've got somebody calling us from our area, but it's important that we are all kind of rowing together the same way on these things. So appreciate the work being done.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I do want to respond, since we opened up the pit.
We're mining after hours, I think, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, and that is as far as looking for some consistency, and that's one reason that I was thinking of pulling it myself, because, again, I do have a little trouble with all-day Saturday and about the consistency of that, because you do have residents out there, and we had a petition of over 25 people in opposition to it. We had a good crowd of people there testifying in opposition, but somehow, there should be some time that they get their peace and quiet. Yes, on Sunday, but a lot of the pits we have are just half day on Saturday, and that means that in the afternoon you can have your graduation party, you can have your anniversary party, you can have your family picnic, and it's not just the crusher, it's not just the trucks, but also when they go in reverse and that beep beep beep. Oh my goodness, that sure can be kind of like a toothache to some folks. So if we're going to go ahead and move this forward with all day on Saturday, that's concerning to me, because when we have our meeting, I want to take a look at, again, in those densely populated areas where we have residents, those days are very important to them, and it's kind of like taking part of their summer away. So, and sure, from 7 in the morning till noon, you can get a lot of stuff done, but that would be the way you'd operate. So,
Yeah, because this is one of those, it's interesting, if you review the chart, you have CJK partnership, which has 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Monday through Saturday. And then you have, I don't know if this Bill Scepaniak is the same one that we're dealing with, but, that was 6 to 8 p.m. crushing Monday through Saturday, April through November.
right, but then you also, Mr. Chair, then you also have those that only go till noon. And again,
Correct.
If you
And
take
that's where I
a
think-
look at the number of residents, and to me, this was one where we had a population of homes that are actually concerned about their welfare, whereas some of those others were in remote locations. I don't know if the birds and the bees are going to come and complain to us about the noise, but
Well, the issue, to me, you got Cutzer's Pit is right next to this one.
that's another issue.
You know,
We're
and
going
they
to
have
talk
the
about that
same
hopefully
hours,
on our
so-
workshop. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Mr.
Commissioner
Chairman, to your comment on the contractor and the contractors bid projects, knowing there's going to be weather events, and sometimes if they finish early, there's a benefit, they get a bonus. Sometimes if it's late, there's there's things in there that allow them if it's weather related or whatever. So again, that's a business deal. But I don't think, and I appreciate you, Commissioner Johnson, bringing this up, and you do have a right to do that. And sometimes that's misconstrued. It's different when it's in his district or my district or Steve's district. Obviously, we feel, and what I would do, and what I've tried to do as a courtesy is if it was something in your district, I'd come to you and say, Commissioner Johnson, I think this is a touchy issue. Are you considering pulling this? And should we have I would have that discussion with you. I would have had that with Commissioner Notch had we talked yesterday. That would have been my suggestion, but again, that's up to him, because there are some very open-endedness, and it isn't done. It isn't over. And if we think we're gonna do noise monitors like we have at some of these event centers and have people run around with noise, then we haven't done our job, in my opinion. When we limit the hours, limit the days, then you take that out. Look at how many police reports there were. I think the sheriff's office have a lot more important things to do. Not that this isn't important, but to run out there and say there's a noise complaint. We're not preventing that, in my opinion. So that's unfortunate. So now they're gonna be spending a lot more time. I mean, I've never seen that many police reports on a sand pit operation. And that's unfortunate. In my opinion, that means we haven't done it. If we limit it, the hours, and we don't do it on Saturdays and holidays, you're not gonna see that kind of drop, in my opinion. So, but again, sometimes I'm too practical.
Well, but then noise is, again, something that might be a issue to me, but not to the next guy. So, that's a random subject too. Commissioner Johnson?
Well, when I I think I used it as an example, the noise monitors. I don't know what the answer is. What I was suggesting is we should remove the burden from the residents having to complain. That's really what I was trying to do. I mean, we are the county, we're responsible for the ordinances, and that's really where I was going with that. I personally think we should approve this, and as has been suggested by Commissioner Persky, there will be future discussions about this, and there is an appetite for making changes, and I think we should meet with the Planning Commission and subsequently begin to work some of those things out.
Okay. Commissioner Clark?
Yeah, just, this is for the public in case they hadn't read it. The Planning Commission recommended approval 6-1, and it is our practice when it's 6-1. We rarely hold our own hearings, so I will also, given the amount of work they put in it, be voting to move this forward. And I was smiling because technology might be able to help us at some point, and I don't know that it exists quite yet, but on the human service side, there's now this electronic kind of thing that could show whether or not somebody is actually getting a service, like there's a human being there when they're supposed to be, et cetera. Perhaps we will get there in the not too distant future, that there'll be something that relates to sound or something like this, which would make everybody's lives better. And it is hard because businesses and residents don't always understandably feel a need to have a relationship with each other, but we've certainly seen multiple times where if they're not communicating with each other, how hard it is. So, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Roll call?
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Commissioner Clark,
Aye.
Commissioner Persky,
Nay.
Commissioner Bertram,
Aye.
Commissioner Notch.
Aye.
Passes 4-1.
Okay, motion passes 4-1. Okay, thanks for that good discussion. And, as was stated, the hope is to get, a joint meeting with us and the Planning Commission and the Board of Adjustment to wade through some of these issues so we can have more consistency and hopefully not have as many, residents being or feeling, I don't want to say neglected, but not heard is probably a better way to state it. So with that,
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Bertram.
to that point, I think it would be helpful, and I don't know how we do this, but before we meet with both of those bodies, it would be helpful if we had some agreement or consensus on some things, whatever that might be, because otherwise we're going to meet and just kind of,
Isn't that where we create consensus?
well, but we've got two boards. I think before, and again, just a suggestion, before we meet with the two boards and staff, it might be helpful if we kind of had a consensus as a board on issues like event centers and noise ordinances and just a thought, because otherwise we'll just be coming in. The reason, the way I understand it, the reason for the meeting is for us to give some direction to the planning and the Board of Adjustment. Well, if we are not in agreement on what that direction should be, it's going to be a missed opportunity to present that to them. Again, just my thought, but we can do it any way everybody wants to.
Yeah, I guess I would, or look at it, are we trying to create consensus? I mean, I know we're the final authority, but sometimes I think then the Planning Commission, Board of, any committee looks at it and says, well, whatever you guys suggest, we'll go with. You know, and I'd be more inclined to say, I'd rather hear everybody and then come to, I mean, we still would final say and say, we hear the opinions.
Yeah,
Mr. Spursky.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I think just the process, just a couple things on the process, just with the number of years I've gotten into it, is that, for example, after the fact, we've got maybe way too many things that come in after the fact, and we got a lot of good contractors out there, but then we got some other contractors that, that's okay, I just pay the after the fact fee, and that's part of the operation. And oftentimes they are getting by with maybe some things we maybe shouldn't be allowing them to get by with. So that's concerning to me. So I guess I'd like to see us taking a look at that too. And then also, as far as the proposal, with this last one, we don't have any pits near neighborhoods like that operate 24 hours a day, or shouldn't have, or we've never granted that. But then to have somebody come in and request that, are you requesting the sky just so that you say, well, we've compromised and we've given something up, instead of coming in with a rational proposal to begin with? And so it makes it look like they've compromised, but the reality is they wouldn't have gotten that from in the first place. So we need to kind of have that general discussion about what is the expectation, what is acceptable, because it should not be the Planning Commission's job to put together that CUP. That shouldn't be their job. They shouldn't have to say, well, we're going to give you this, we're going to give you this, we're not going to give you this. The business model should come in with something that's going to be reasonable to begin with and respectful to begin with. That's my opinion.
Because their job is to make the recommendation.
Right.
To us, correct?
Correct. But again, like this, the thing that even in the dialogue, there were 3 commissioners that didn't want to do Saturdays, okay? But then after the discussion, they just said, let it go. And so then it ended up being a 6-1 vote, yeah.
Okay. All right. Thanks for that lively discussion. We will recess the regular meeting and open the Human Services Board meeting. There's 2 consent items. Looks like Mr. Henderson's going to be stepping up.
I am.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Nick Henderson, Human Services Director, filling in for Melissa Huberty today. We have 2 items on the Human Services consent agenda today. They are items G1 and G2. They should be on pages 209 to 213 in your guys' packets. Item G1 is the grant agreement with the Department of Children, Youth, and Family Services for Restorative Justice Practices Initiative Grant. And item G2 is the Human Services claims paid January through February. And I'm available for any questions that you may have.
You want to have any comments, Commissioner Johnson?
I'll move approval of this item.
Okay, we have a motion
Second.
and a second from Commissioner Clark. Further discussion? Commissioner
I
Johnson?
do have some questions.
Sounds good. I'll be
How
available.
are you, Nick?
I am doing well.
This grant has everything to do with the age of a delinquency change at the state level, and also, to some degree, the Minnesota African American Family Preservation Child Welfare Disproportionately Act, that one. The grant allows for $154,000 or so for a 1-year period. It says in the paperwork that after that, there will be no need for additional resources or whatever the case may be. Now, the 2 things that I just mentioned were part of our priorities at the legislature to get changed, because right now they're not all that workable. I'm wondering if this $154,000 will get it to the point where it is workable, because there's an implication that that's the case. And it doesn't seem to me that without the legislative changes that we're requesting, that we won't still have a problem after the grant. Now, I'm not opposed to accepting the grant, do not misunderstand. But I want to know how those things work together.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Johnson, you are correct in that this is not to fully supplant the impacts that the Act and the age of delinquency changes are going to have. This is really an opportunity for us to continue our prevention efforts as well, to continue to move towards implementation and preparing for those pieces. Certainly, there is a lot of legislative work to be done for the Act and for the age of delinquency change, and I appreciate your guys' efforts with that as well. Ultimately, this is really an opportunity for us, and if I can share just a few words, kind of, where our vision is with this grant as well, I certainly will do that, and hopefully that can answer some of your questions as well. Our restorative justice practices are going to offer an opportunity to strengthen outcomes across the child protection, child welfare, and children's mental health systems by focusing on repairing harm, strengthening family relationships, and engaging natural supports. Our restorative approaches can help prevent unnecessary out-of-home placements, support safe reunification when children have been removed, and these practices create a space for our families, youth, and professionals to work collaboratively on accountability, healing, and sustainability of safety plans. This approach becomes even more important as policy change occurs beginning August 1st, which we've talked about. In Minnesota, the age of delinquency will increase from the age of 10 to the age of 13, meaning younger children who who previously may have entered the juvenile justice system will instead require responses rooted in family support, behavioral health, and community interventions. And restorative practices will provide a framework for us addressing harm and accountability while keeping youth connected to their families and communities, which is also what the Act is aimed to do. And then finally, expanding our restorative approaches across the child protection, child welfare, and children's mental health system will help us build stronger families, reduce system involvement, and create more developmentally appropriate responses for our children and youth in the county. We were one of 11 awardees on this grant. It was an opportunity for us. It was also an opportunity. This was a direction that we actually were already moving in our division to implement restorative justice practices. So this was another way for us to continue to support it and also have a positive impact to our budget, because we can bill some of our staff time directly to this grant, which will be about 0.81 FTE. So we're not adding staff, but we can bill for our staff when they provide that service.
And on a parallel track, we'll all work toward legislative changes in those two areas, the Act as well as the age of delinquency.
Correct.
Correct.
Commissioner Bertram?
Mr. Chairman, welcome to the board. Nick, good to see you, and your team, some of which are with you. This is certainly takes a bigger effort to do it. And again, it's unfortunate. It's got to be done, but it does, and we're doing the best we can, and we've got to move forward. But good luck with it.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Bertram, I greatly appreciate that, and I would just acknowledge I do have one of our supervisors, Jen Mikesell, in the room, and Leah Ball, who is one of our children's mental health social workers. Leah is one of our workers who will implement this work. She is fully trained in it and has been passionate about this, and she's joined our team here in Stearns County.
Oh, welcome. Thanks for coming to the meeting. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nick.
Have a great day.
Yep, you too. All right, with that, we will close the Human Service Board and reconvene our regular board meeting. Next up is Environmental Services. Morning, Becky and Emily.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. I do have a PowerPoint slide that was submitted. If that's not available, the packet page is 214. There we go. Okay. So good morning, Commissioners. Becky Schlorf, Ag and Water Resources Division Supervisor, and here with me is Emily Forboard, Environmental Specialist. So I'm just giving you an update on the programs within my division, the annual update that I tend to give you every year. So the 4 programs will be the Wetland Conservation Act, the Feedlot Program, Aquatic Invasive Species, and then the water planning. So the Wetland Conservation Act is a mandated program that we implement through the Board of Water and Soil Resources. The average number of contacts that our staff have annually is about 873. We were down last year with 656. This covers the entire county of Stearns except for the municipality of the city of Sartell. So these contacts are having to do with wetland determinations, banking applications, exemptions, delineations, et cetera, and is a count that the state requires us to report. So for wetland violations in 2025, we did investigate 15 situations, and of those, 12 were invalid or met an exemption allowed by state. 5 of those did result in violations, and 4 were informal resolutions. So if something is not resolved, we do work with the DNR and our conservation district, and a restoration order is issued then by the DNR. And, go ahead.
Can I just ask, can you maybe just state like what's an example of a violation, just for the record?
So for wetlands in the state of Minnesota, it's a no net loss law and statute. And so it regulates the draining and filling of wetlands. So if there's fill in a wetland, say for instance, the obvious like a cattail piece of ground, if that is filled in, that would be a violation. Or draining, if a ditch is dug, a new ditch or a ditch that's existing is dug deeper, that can also be a violation for draining wetlands that are adjacent to the ditch.
Thank you. Commissioner
To
Bertram.
that point, Mr. Chairman, so if a farmer wants a tile or a farmer wants to clean out a ditch, they get permits from you or from who?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Bertram, for the farmland, there's regulation by the state as well as the federal government for the farm programs that people are sometimes enrolled in. And so there has been a new effort and rule. So in some of these tiling situations, we're no longer being contacted as long as they meet the NRCS or Natural Resource Conservation Service standards. And so that's partly, I think, why our numbers did drop in 2025. But in some cases, they still are required to get our permission for the Wetland Conservation Act.
And so who decides that? If I want a tile, somebody asked me this last week, and they said environmental services. I said, I didn't know that they were involved with that, I guess. So the question's timely. So if I want a tile, I'm a farmer, who do I start with? NRCS?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Bertram, I think it would certainly start with NRCS and then check with our office as well, just to be sure that an exemption or approval is allowed.
Mr. Chairman, would NRCS know that? Again, not having people having to check with 2 or 3 different agencies, could they be the lead, or are they the lead, or?
There, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Bertram, there's no established communication, I guess, between the agencies, the federal and the state. But I think, again, with the allowances allowed under state now for NRCS, or some of those NRCS approvals, it's probably best for people to start with NRCS. And they are aware that we have approvals necessary in some cases too.
And it is, if I'm correct, Becky, isn't it also if they want to outlet into like a county ditch or a system, they usually have to go to the watershed for a permit to have that outlet
Yes.
into a public system?
Yes, Mr. Chair. If they're creating a new, or if they're doing any work really in a public drainage system, they would need that public drainage authority's approval. And yes,
Technically.
right.
And if I remember way back on one of the cases, I think the NRCS, it was like Form 1026 something, that in order to be allowed to do that work, you have to have that form, I think is what I was told.
Yeah.
If you're going to do something involving NRCS.
Correct, Mr. Chair, and that's some of the documentation that we ask for from constituents for approval for WACA.
Thank you.
So in 2025, we did have a couple of registration orders that did need to be taken further, and so our staff then worked with the county attorney's office and the DNR to deal with those situations. In the next slide, this is showing the replacement plan and banking plan applications. So the replacement plans are used when someone is impacting wetland and that gets approved. They then have to purchase credits at the ratio typically is a 2-to-1. And then the banking applications are where an individual landowner is making wetland to then sell those credits to those that are looking to purchase and make impacts. So for 2025, we did have 3 replacement applications come before us, and on average, we're, in the last 10 years, we're averaging about 5 to 6. But banking plan applications, they take a lot longer. And so we do have 3 that are in the prospectus stage right now, although none have been approved in recent years.
Commissioner Persky.
Yeah, Becky, then are those then purchased on the open market?
Correct. The landowners then, once those banking applications are approved, then are listed on the state and the Bowser website, the Board of Water and Soil Resources. The people that are looking to impact wetlands contact them directly and negotiate a price.
Yeah, and we're working on the replacement on transportation. What are the prices that you've seen here for this past year for these feedlots?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Persky, the price has stayed pretty steady. It's still right now around $2.50 a square foot. And that is obviously a great increase. I think I'd given you before.
That's about $100,000 an acre, isn't it?
I'd have to do, I haven't done the math. So it is expensive, but it hasn't increased in the last year or so. But obviously it's much more increase from prior years.
And the sellers of these wetland, are they actually generating the wetland, or somehow do they have pieces that are already available for sale? How does that work?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Persky. So those banking applications, they are creating wetland. Okay. They're creating new wetland, and that's often on pieces of ground that are maybe difficult to farm. They then break the tile, make it impound, and create the wetland. Okay. Again, there's lots of approvals and engineering involved. Then once that's all done, those credits are available on the market. Those banking applications get some initial credits available, and then over the years, as the wetland continues to show its stability, additional credits are released. So there's a plan for the release of those credits and a checks on the monitoring that things are actually holding and before those credits are sold.
Okay. Commissioner Bertram.
2 questions, Mr. Chairman. Why are there 14 plans, wetland replacement plans in 2017? That was extremely high. And then the second question, why are the wetland banking plans basically limited to 19, 20, 21, and 22?
Mr. Chair and Commissioner Bertram, I don't have a good answer. It could depend on prices or the willingness and interest of people. So I don't have a good explanation of why those numbers varied in that way. Sometimes people get, started on a plan and then it starts to look too expensive. They back away, or sometimes other things become involved or delay a project. It's hard to say.
Because those would be applications, they could withdraw them, I suppose.
Correct. They can withdraw a replacement plan application. An individual can also withdraw a banking application. We had one a few years ago come before our technical evaluation panel where the state and some of the people looking at it were not sure it was worth the effort because it was a lower number of credits that would become available. But that's up to the owners to decide, is it worth their time and money to make that investment, because it is an upfront investment.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Chairman, we'll be involved in this, obviously, with the Justice Center because we've got wetlands that we have to mitigate.
Correct, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Bertram. Our staff have been working with the staff at the Sheriff's Department as well as administration, and we're aware of that application coming before us the next month or 2. And that goes to ultimately the Wetland Rules Committee is the decision maker on that approval. So.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. If there's no other questions on wetlands, I'm going to move into feedlots. So as you know, we're delegated by the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency to implement the state feedlot rules. The numbers have not really changed over the last several years. All totaled, we have about 2,500 feedlots in the county of all sizes. If you're looking at this chart and ignore the total column, all of the black numbers are those that are required to register by the state and that the state pays us to basically oversee. So that number is 1,350. That has remained steady for the last few years. And then the numbers in orange are those that are either required by the county to register under our ordinance or that we're aware of and then we track just for zoning purposes because they're on smaller parcels or exceed the animal unit density. But yeah, the majority of our feedlots are less than 300 animal units. And the general trend has continued where the larger sites are getting larger. The middle ones are kind of going away, so they're either getting smaller or larger. Last year in 2025, we issued 79 permits. Our average for 5 years is 76. In addition to these 79 county or state and state permits, we also, issued or dealt with 4 variances on 3 properties and then 6 conditional use permits.
Mr. Chairman, the permits, those 79 permits, did they follow in the breakdown of the number of less than 10 to 49? I mean, are those 79 kind of equal, or were they all leaning towards the bigger ones, or was it across the board?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Bertram, I don't have the spread available with respect to the animal size, but I can tell you in the next slide that for the state permits, where a state permit is required, so that's 300 animal units or more, or 100 animal units or more with a pollution concern, we issued 37 permits in 2025, which far exceeded any prior year. As you can see by the chart, we had 24 was our last high, and that was several years ago. And so the workload increased a lot last year just because we had to do a lot more state permits, which does require a lot more oversight and back and forth with applicants to make sure everything's in order. So I can tell you we issued more of the larger site permits than in previous years. But yes, the number of 79 does include the smaller sites.
And Mr. Chairman, if it's convenient or available, I'd like to see the breakdown, if you've got it.
Yeah, I can produce
Maybe the
that,
rest
and I
of the
can
board
provide
will
it
too.
to the board, yep. Okay. So I'm going to keep moving. The non-compliance of feedlots by size has not really changed much. And this is a slide showing the non-compliance based on open lot runoff or liquid manure storage area concerns and even stockpiles. So we're tending to see the medium-sized feedlots from 10 to 299 animal units and continuing to improve their compliance status. Manure records and the non-compliance continues along the same status, I guess, or same trend. Right now, we have checked 67% of all of the sites that are required to keep manure records, and right now we're still at 41% non-compliance. So as we continue to get more of them reviewed, we're still seeing the compliance, or non-compliance rather, stay pretty steady, as you can see from this slide.
And Becky, that's keeping the written records of where and how much?
Correct. So yes, it's which fields was it applied to, how much, what rate, the carryover nitrogen calculated, based on the crop need, and the manure samples every 4 years. So sometimes there's a gap. A lot of times you see a gap that maybe there's no records, maybe there's not the carryover nitrogen calculated, or maybe there's not a new manure sample taken.
Commissioner Persky?
So this non-compliance, is this concerning, or is it just something that they're not mindful of? How serious is the non-compliance? I mean, 40% of non-compliance to me just sticks out, saying that there's something wrong, but is it dangerous, harmful, or how concerning is the non-compliance?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Persky, I think like you're pointing out, it's a large number. And with the likely rise in fertilizer prices, that would help, I guess, motivate some to maybe perhaps watch more closely the manure rates or nitrogen rates using manure. The other thing is that the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency is undergoing the rule update. And so there's talk that those rules will become more restrictive perhaps with record keeping or even requirements for having a manure plan. And so that becomes, somewhat concerning, is that we're seeing noncompliance at this rate now. If there's some new restrictions, how do we handle that? There is some funding available to help people write a manure management plan and thus keep the records for a 3-year period. We just had a meeting with our Stearns Conservation District on that, and there's not a lot of interest in people signing up. So we're going to try to get the word out better on that, though. But yes, if there's some advice or feedback on how we could help tackle this and convince people to keep some records and then make some improvements here, we're open to hearing that feedback.
Commissioner Bertram.
Mr. Chairman, yeah, I was shocked too that it was that high. I'm guessing it's in the lower animal unit ranges, the large ones. I mean, that's pretty standard operation practice. I would assume it's the smaller ones.
Correct, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Bertram. I would agree with you. I mean, I could try to do the spread on that and figure out the spread as well. But in talking with our conservation district and the plans that they work on, they're still surprised to see issues at the larger sites in some cases too. Again, having a more current manure sample, for instance, maybe it's been 5 years, well, that's outside of the 4 years, or not having it done as frequently as needed. So, yeah, I think there's room for improvement, obviously. We're just not sure exactly how to tackle that. We try to advise people and direct them to their certified crop advisors, to their co-ops, to the Soil and Water Conservation District.
And you'd think with margins being so tight that they would want to hone in on this as a cost-saving measure, but again.
Mr. Chairman, but I mean, this is part of doing the business. I mean, which surprises me. And to your question, is it concerning? Well, the larger the feedlot, the larger the concern. If you got 20 animal units, I would guess, that's why I was curious how many of those are the smaller animal units. I would guess that the smaller animal unit, asking for advice of how to deal with it. First of all, if you're non-compliant, what's the penalty, or what happens?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Bertram, we issue a letter of warning and a prescribed timeline for coming into compliance. So if we find that out this year or at this time of the year for crop year 2025, then we ask them to get crop year 26 records to us. And so there's no teeth, though, in essence. We could turn them over to the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, but this is primarily an educational role, and how does it benefit you? How can it benefit your bottom line? But that's it's still been a challenge to
And
to
the
get
last
there.
point, Mr. Chairman, that the education is obviously, who these 41% are. If the bulk of them are the smaller animal, I'm guessing they don't know what to do. So if you give them a form of saying, you need to become compliant, this is how you can do it, with a simple form of filling this out, because their records are going to be much different if you're 10, 20, 30 animal units than if you're 1,000. So I would think the education would go a long way.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Bertram, they're only required to keep records if there are 100 animal units or more. And so the state has forms for that. We give them out, and it hasn't helped us, I guess, achieve a better compliance rate. But the other thing that the state has done is developed a nutrient management tool that's online. So for folks that are inclined to use computers, they can use the state's online service to develop a plan and keep the records. I don't know that many people in Stearns County are yet using that. We're still getting familiar with it ourselves. And it's not a requirement at this point, but it may become the case at the state level at some point. There's talk of more going online.
So the 41%, Mr. Chairman, are animal units of 100 or more. I mean,
Correct.
that is significant.
Correct.
And I think
I thought they'd be the smaller ones, but that is significant then. So the smaller ones, they don't have to worry about anything.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Bertram, the smaller sites would only be required to keep records if for instance, if we had a complaint or some sort of conditional use permit or something that would require that. Off the top of my head, I don't know that we have any current situations where there's any record-keeping required for smaller sizes.
It would seem the caveat is, if you don't take care of it, somebody will legislate it probably, and then there's going to be a bigger issue. So,
Yeah.
it would be great if we
yeah.
get that down.
Commissioner, Mr. Chair, that was when I was working back in the field days, that's one of the things I would try to sell it with, is that this is to your benefit, it's your protection. You're showing that you're using your manure in a reasonable
Yeah,
and
it's good
appropriate
faith
manner.
efforts,
Right, yeah. So, anecdotally, I think it's just not in some people's, they have other things on their plate that are of higher priority, I think, in some cases too. So sometimes we do see the younger generation have more interest in it as well. It just depends on the situation.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so I've touched on some of this already, I guess. The staff continue to remain involved in our Minnesota Association of County Feedlot Officers, and we are a member of the AMC as well, so we work on the platform. But this also is a very valuable, Stearns County is the #1 livestock producing county in the state by far. The next in line would be Todd County, and they're about half the size of us for animal numbers. So we, working with the MPCA on these various committees and such, can provide feedback and input on changes to forms and processes and policies. So it's very valuable for us to stay active and involved in that. The other thing, in 2025 was the last year of the one-time biennium funding increase, so we're back down to the levels of prior years now in 2026. And then I mentioned the nutrient management tool that's come out, and the feedlot rule revision process began in 2025 with a public comment period. Right now, the MPCA has asked the counties to produce a list of feedlot owners and operators that would be interested in participating on a stakeholder committee on that rule. So we are providing a list of names of interested parties we've contacted that can help work on that. So that's our involvement at this point. But the rule change is expected to take approximately 4 years. So it'll be a long process. We won't see any draft for likely a couple of years. But again, there is movement for online submission, and we're waiting to hear more from the state on what this looks like. There was an order by the governor for the MPCA to go online with permitting so that they can do more of a real-time method, a real-time status check. Anybody can check on a permit live. So what that means for the delegation, I'm not sure at this point, but we did just sign a 2-year agreement with the state to administer it in this manner. So I expect that we may not see that requirement hit us till maybe 2 years out. But that does mean us making an internal process change. Right now, we've kind of got it like a one-stop shop application. We'll have to pull apart our county and state permit applications to divide up that process. So that is all I have on feedlots. If there aren't any questions.
I don't know if I want to open up this can of worms, but so take somebody like me who has a feedlot. I forget what I have. I think it's over 100 animal units. So how do I know if I'm in compliance or out of compliance?
Mr. Chair, we've been out to every site at least once over the last 10-ish years or so, and everybody that was out of compliance was notified at that time. So if you have a question on it,
Okay, now I feel
you
good.
can certainly contact staff, but as I recall, your feedlot was compliant. But at any time, anybody has a question, we can provide it.
Starting to get a little sweaty there for a minute.
I don't know if I would have asked that during a public meeting. But what the hell?
Commissioner,
Well, because it's kind of like,
I'm going to get a call from your attorney later today.
well, I figure, if you got a lagoon and you got your runoff, everything is being captured and you're doing all that stuff, you're probably in compliance.
Yeah, and we had some sites back in the, years ago that had soil borings done for their liquid manure storage areas that hadn't gotten properly permitted, and they were notified too. You need a new liner and such, and so those are still, we're still working on our compliance. We've got 206 sites that are still non-compliant at this point, but.
Commissioner Clark?
I'm really sorry. This is just very interesting, recognizing we have a lot more to get through today, but maybe I missed this in the earlier part of this conversation, but how burdensome is this for people? Or is it truly them not remembering they don't have a good tickler system, like what, I mean, I know you said there's things you don't know, but going back to what you just brought up, Mr. Chair, people may just not be aware of it. So is it complicated, and is there a not too complicated way to remind people?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Clark, are you speaking to the manure record keeping?
Yep. Or reporting, excuse me, Mr. Chair.
So they're required to keep the records on site, and then when we do an inspection, provide the records that for the last 3 to 6 years, depending. And so I think it's just not become a standard practice for some. We've also heard some that have signed up for the federal program to get started in it, and then as soon as that funding dropped off after 3 years, they discontinued it. So it might not, they're maybe not finding it worth their time or seeing the value in it, that they quit doing it unless pushed by cost or incentive money. Or maybe rising fertilizer prices will help that, like I said. I don't have a clear answer, but we know it's continued to be a struggle over the years. Perhaps as more generations get more technically savvy and find it easy to enter their numbers in a computer and have it do the calculations for carryover nitrogen, for example, that they'll find it more valuable.
And actually, I did this back in the day, is the EQIP program, through Soil and Water. A lot of times, that's a good educational piece where they'll help fund, you weigh the manure spreader, you figure all this out, and you get your consultant to tell you how much you're putting on.
Right. Well, and Mr.
So, yeah.
Chair, in some ways, this goes back to what Commissioner Bertram brought up, since it's over 100, right? I mean, so that raises maybe a different flag, but when you're talking 40%, if there's good practices, but we don't have any way of knowing it, and it's not going to be staff when you're talking about the kind of period that it takes to get to everybody's, that can be hard. It sounds like a little bit the carrot approach of funding from somewhere might have helped a little bit. And is there much of a consequence? I mean, I do get concerned that unless people are showing that they're complying, they may really not like what's going to happen, or some in the public, and talk about can of worms, may start thinking we've got problems with feedlots that we don't really have, but we can't demonstrate it.
Correct. Yeah, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Clark. Again, the best selling point is is that it provides benefit to them, the carrot. And so the best thing that we think we can do at this point is provide them with those resources for accessing the equipped dollars to get them started, and make a connection with a local certified crop advisor, because then that can help keep it rolling. It's not guaranteed, but it can certainly help.
Commissioner Persky?
Yeah, and going off what Commissioner Clark was alluding to, to me, there's a difference here with poor record keeping and poor practice. And so by all means, I'm less concerned about poor record keeping as much as I would be concerned about poor practice. Because by all means, we want to make sure we're protecting the groundwater, lakes, and rivers. So yeah, it would be good to know that, okay, even though the records are poor, they're still complying to regulations.
Correct. That can very well be the case, but we have no way of showing it, as Commissioner Clark.
Yeah, and I have one other thing. You'd mentioned Stearns County has the greatest number of animals. Now, just curious, I knew we had the greatest number of dairy cows. I knew that. But are you talking animal units then, when you say that?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Persky, we have the largest number of feedlots.
Okay.
So, I'm assuming that's in animal units, I guess, too. I'd have to query that further with the state. But yes, we are at 1,350 for sites, and I think Todd County, as I said, is the one behind us, and they're at 700 or so. Okay. So they're the next closest in number of feedlots that are registered by the state.
Okay.
Commissioner Johnson?
Mr. Chair, Becky, back a few slides. Registered with the state or not registered with the state, funded by the state or not? What's the criteria, and does that have an impact on this issue?
Commissioner,
Compliance issue.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Johnson, the threshold for registration with the state is 10 animal units or more inside shoreland areas, or 50 animal units or more outside of the shoreland. And so as far as compliance with record keeping goes, any of those that are required to keep records are 100 animal units or more, so it's just going to be those. As far as compliance with open lot runoff or manure storage, that applies to everyone. And so even though we may not be getting paid for some of those in the orange, we are still addressing those issues. So I don't know if that answered your question.
Well, it sort of does, but if you're not getting paid, time is of the essence, maybe.
Correct.
Although you did say that it is the larger animal units, the larger feedlots, where the non-compliance occurs, so, okay, thank you, appreciate it.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Johnson, I'm also going to jump back to here. So, yeah, our largest area of noncompliance is the 100 to 299 animal units, which we're showing improvement. There's the delegation agreement requires us requires us to do 7%, inspect 7% of the sites per year of the state registered. So that's only those ones in black, not the orange. Yet we still have to work with everyone on compliance issues. So yes, we do look at and have to make sure we meet that 7% minimum, or we look at losing some of our funding. So our priority is to work with the state registered sites.
Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Bertram.
Animal units, are, include poultry, so chickens, turkey, and what is it, like 10 equal a cow? Animal unit is like a cow.
1,000 pounds.
Right. And so I always had fun. I asked what an elephant would be, because he always would say 10 chickens and 5 sheep, and if you remember what I thought was funny at the time. A fun fact that a lot of people may not know, and I think it's still relevant, but every city in Stearns County had at least one bar, one farm, and a Catholic church. Every city in Stearns County. So a lot of people thought, well, there isn't a farm in a town. There's a farm in every town in Greenville, Spring Hill, St. Cloud. I don't know if that's still active or not, but of course, Catholic church scene is changing, so that's not going to be the same, but fun fact,
All right.
at least for me.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I'll have Emily address the aquatic invasive species.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. I'm Emily Forward, the environmental specialist. I will be talking about the aquatic invasive species recap for 2025. For 2025, there was a new infestation in Two Rivers Lake, and that was starry stonewort. That was found later in the year around the end of August, September. As you can see on the map there, it is color-coded based on the infestation type. And in the chart there, you can see that Stearns County has roughly over 65 infestations. And for the inspections that were completed by water guards last year, there was roughly 13,000 inspections done at 9 accesses and 8 water bodies. Most of these inspections were completed when the boat was entering the water body, and there were 2.2 average inspections per hour. There were 28 AIS surveys on 28 different lakes. 9 lakes were funded for control activities like management and surveys. And we do have an active committee that is non-appointed. And currently our biggest concern is going to be the funding decrease in the next year. And we will be exploring changes with inspections and other means like eyelids to come into the program.
Mr. Chair, just to clarify, the way Stearns County its budget and the funds for AIS, we will see the impact in calendar year 2028. So we have some time to figure out what to do, and like Emily was saying, address our inspections differently.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Bertram.
Whoops. Most of the inspections are done, obviously in the spring when people put their boat in for the first time. That's a lot of inspections, because a large percentage of boats that go on a lake stay in the lake for the summer. Equally, maybe 50%, I don't know what it is, do come. So I've never seen when a boat gets inspected and there are issues, what happens?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Bertram, the inspector would ask them to remove or help them remove the aquatic invasive species, and then that's the end of it. They're just not allowed to transport and be on the road with that on a trailer or equipment or watercraft. So in some cases, we do have some lake associations using eyelids, an electronic monitoring device, and if those do capture a license plate with debris or aquatic invasive species, then the sheriff's office can get involved. And if they actively see it when they go to that owner's location, then they can issue a citation. Otherwise, it's an educational endeavor, which is not a bad thing either.
I thought, Mr. Chairman, it was interesting that last fall, when we took our pontoon off of Cronus, the DNR was there, and they literally pressure washed it. That's the first time I've ever seen that, but I thought, what a way of prevention. Obviously, you're putting it in storage, and over the winter, I think they die, don't they? I mean, over a period of time. However, I thought, talk about prevention, that certainly would be a way, or even during the year. I don't know if they do that during the year. I've never seen that. If you move it, but if you move it from one lake to another lake during the year, and you would pressure wash it, obviously that would, decrease the potential of,
Correct.
traveling with something significantly.
Yes, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Bertram, several years ago, we had worked with another contractor that did have a decontamination unit. There is no contractor left in the state that's doing that anymore. So the state still does have some decontamination units that they move around, and they will do that. So it's an expense. It's more expensive and takes more operational use, obviously, a different level of inspector. But yes, it's like the Cadillac way of addressing and making sure aquatic invasive species are not transported.
Commissioner Johnson? Did you?
Mr. Chair, Becky, as I recall, last fall I heard that the number in terms of the state reduction for inspections of aquatic invasive species was about 50% that you're expecting down the road?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Johnson, the funding decrease is 50%. Not all of our dollars go towards inspections, but in essence, approximately 50%. Yeah.
So that funding was just for your work in general?
That is
decrease.
funding as Emily was reporting, the lake assessments and control measures and inspections. So that funding, all totaled, is going to be decreased by 50% for us in 2028.
And I assume you're beginning to think of how to deal with that.
Correct. Yes. So our committee that we have of very engaged stakeholders and help advise us, we're looking at setting up a different type of process. So we may just decide to do inspections in a different manner. Maybe that's including, and which we did start to do, is partially fund eyelids. So it's a less costly way of monitoring the lake's access. And then we're also looking at maybe setting up a different type of schedule where instead of the requests for proposals or RFP manner for inspections, we may also add a component of doing, setting up a schedule across the county. So we were looking at 3 different methods for doing inspections to help spread the dollars and manage that.
Thank you. That's great. I note that 50% is pretty onerous. And if we need to support you, help us figure out how.
Yep, thank you.
Mr. Chair? Emily, one quick question. A number of years ago, we were seeing just a dramatic increase with zebra mussels, and that was a battle. And have we lost that battle, actually lost that war? Do we still have lakes in the area that don't have them?
Do you know that? Mr. Cherry, this map we had here, I know it's difficult to read, and we can certainly provide a larger map. But we do have lakes that are not infested with zebra mussels yet. So the battle isn't lost, I guess, with respect to that. That is one of the more concerning invasive species. They all are, but obviously starry stonewort is also a major concern. And then there's also other ones out there that other states that we're concerned about coming to Minnesota. It's just an ongoing battle.
Right, I know that stonewort too was concerning, yeah.
Commissioner Clark?
Just
again, as I know we're going to be moving on, the work of this committee is still very unique in the state. And with so many actively engaged in their lake associations as well as us, their creativity really, I mean, they try really hard. Before they were cutting this money, it was hard. So as they're coming up with new initiatives or ideas about how we can get there, it'll be really good to hear. So thank you all and them,
Yeah,
because they clearly remain actively engaged in this.
yeah. Thank you. We'll be sure to let them know.
All right, moving on to the water planning. So one watershed, one plan. This isn't new. We've had these 4 watersheds in our county for quite some time. The first one I'll be talking about is the North Fork Crow River watershed, which is 17.5% of Stearns County. It's actually in its implementation phase and is completing the 3rd grant currently. There was a 5-year performance eval a couple years ago, and we will soon be starting the 10-year plan rewrite for the North Fork. Moving on to the Sauk River watershed, which is roughly 48% of Stearns County. We are in the 2nd grant implementation phase and will be applying for our 3rd grant here shortly. Stearns County serves as the fiscal agent, and we will be trying to get out of that role, as some of you know. Moving on to Mississippi River St. Cloud watershed, which is 12% of Stearns County, roughly. The plan was adopted late in 2024, and we are under our 1st implementation phase grant. And then Mississippi Sartell, which is 22.5% of the county. We began the planning phase for the plan in the spring and summer of 2024, and the plan should be completed by the end of 2026, so September, November, and then hopefully adopted in 2027.
And then if I will just add 2, so with that plan, we'll be coming back to you for adoption of that, and that would complete all of our plan adoptions, and so that would do away with the overall water plan that we had for the county, and we would just be participating in these 4. The other note I wanted to add with regards to the Sauk River Watershed Collaborative is that we are in talks in moving or transitioning and vacating the role of fiscal agent, which then we will be coming back to you as a board to make and consider that final decision and make it official. The Stearns Conservation District has met and given indication that they are willing and interested in taking on the fiscal agent role. And of course, Commissioner Notch has been involved and aware of that as well. But they are a good fit for that, as they are a conservation district and one of the major implementers of the grant money. So before the application is made for that 3rd grant, we would be transitioning hopefully out of that role as you direct us. So,
Mr. Chairman, are we the fiscal agent of any of the other 3?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Bertram, no. We are the fiscal agent for the Sauk only, and we are one of maybe we're one of 2 across the state counties that are involved in that way. The other one is adjoined or whatever, combined with their soil and water conservation district. So we are kind of an outlier in this respect.
And I brought that up years ago. We seem to be the fiscal agent of a lot of things, and we just end up being that, and I think we want to be more cautious in doing that.
And Mr. Chair, Commissioner Bertram, if I can also add to that, at the time that we took on this role, there was a need for us to step up and do that. The Soil and Water Conservation District wasn't staffed for it, and so we wanted to continue to see this project or this plan get implemented and get the dollars working on the ground. So that's how we got into the role, was to try to keep things moving while they got staffed. They're now staffed and able, and probably will be hiring another staff person to help manage, because they are going to be then fiscal agent for 2 of the watersheds. They are the fiscal agent for the Mississippi River St. Cloud watershed right now, which is just starting, so.
And I understand that, Mr. Chairman, but Todd and Douglas County are part of it, too.
Yeah.
Correct, and they are also fiscal agents for other watersheds as well.
Well, good for them.
Yeah.
And they were all, at the time, reluctant to take on that role, too.
Yeah,
So,
and I should say I'm speaking to the Soil and Water Conservation Districts and not the county, correct? Yes.
And Mr. Chair.
Commissioner
I
Clark.
know you're going to move to the Mississippi River St. Cloud, but certainly when we were starting up there, the message was clear. Stearns was not interested. Staff already had hands more than full. And it was Benton that was doing the planning, and where we were needing to move with implementation really needed a more robust staffing, so the move there was also a very good one. While that's a joint powers, and obviously everybody is working together, a lot of staff work, remain thankful that that has continued to be somebody else now.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, Becky and Emily.
Yeah, that's
Very
all we have.
enlightening.
Thank you.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Our next item is administration.
Yeah,
Mr.
Mr. Chair,
Williams.
you have two items there, and if the board is amenable to it, I'd like to switch the order of those because Mr. Kimmel with Ellers needs to leave a little bit earlier than the rest of us, and so if that's okay,
Sure.
we'll do the Jail Justice Center first. Sorry to blame that all on you, Bruce.
So this is going to be our big sheets, huh?
Yes, and I think we have time that you can do the budget first, Mark.
Yeah.
Because really you should, seems to me that should be the order. So we can run through the draft construction budget, and then Bruce and Randy and staff will talk about the presale resolution. And then you had the resolution in the packet delegating, altering the amount that we will, that the board authorizes for approval without board approval. And I sent you an amended that because actually I changed that and then I didn't change both sections. So so you have the amended one of that for item number 3. And then then again, Mark will take you through the what's being recommended for the alternates, and then you have a number of contracts to approve. So I think I'll let Mark run. Mark, you're going to run through the budget, right?
Yeah, I'll run through the budget. Good morning, Commissioners. Mark Maslin-Kowski with the Sheriff's Office this morning representing the project team. So you have the large sheet in front of you. This should look very familiar to the document you've seen in the past. The first column, obviously, is the description of the items. The second column is the budget that we had estimated through design development. We'll probably be joined here by Mark Miller from Kraus Anderson as well. And then the next column is our post-bid construction budget. And these are the numbers that have been generated based on the bid documents that the county received and the updated numbers as they were reflected with those changes. The second piece the second document that's behind this actually highlights where the biggest changes are on this sheet. If you wanted to go through that line by line, we sure can, but the highlights are on the summary sheet that is on the next page, really highlighting where the changes are. So we, at design development, had an estimate just shy of $324 million for the project. The changes that came after bid day, or as a result of a good bid day, are the changes to the site cost, the changes to the construction cost from bid, which was probably our largest change, and then removal of some escalation that we had built into the project based on the costs and the time that the project was taking. And then as we move into some decreases from architectural and construction management fees, which were based on percentages for the project overall. Below that, there were some additions to the project from the technology side, largely revolving around the dispatch center, some increase in the stations and our original thoughts of being able to move some of the equipment that we had here that just isn't going to work as we move to this site in 3 years. And then some additional changes related to removing or moving some of the fees that were originally on this budget sheet related to some downtown changes as part of the project. And if you have specifics on that, I believe Sarah could comment on those. And then the general project sales tax and contingency changes increase are the highlights to the budget sheet. Sarah, did you have some specifics you wanted to cover?
No, I don't have anything specific. I think we tried to remove some of the downtown stuff because when we're talking financing and the project before us that we are financing and kind of doing in the next 3 years, we really wanted to focus on just the new site and what we have. So we have those accumulated kind of off to the side, knowing there'll be future costs potentially, but we wanted to take them out of what we're focusing on now.
And then the bottom number on there just relate to the contingencies and some adjustments. That contingency was adjusted during value management. When we went into design development, we had decreased some of those percentages to a level that we were comfortable with, but not very comfortable with. And given the project, the size and scope, that contingency number was adjusted to help ensure that we are positioned well, that we're not going to be coming back, hopefully, with any changes to that number or need for additional funds.
Okay, the next part, we want to talk a little bit about the bonding and the financing of this, and I have Bruce Kimball here. So this is just steps in the process that we've talked about in the past. One is to do the resolution that Bruce will cover. Also, then we'll be starting to do an official statement that we need to do for the bond issue and then get rated. And then I think Bruce has some more details he wants to go over, so I'll turn it over to Bruce Kimball from Ellers.
Great. Thank you, Randy. Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. I'm going to be referring to the presale report that is in your board packet. I won't go through all of the exciting details, but please stop me if you have any questions on any of the points. So as you just heard, we're looking to finance $291 million for this project. And your first question might be, well, why is this bond amount $287 million, if we're financing $291 million? You may recall that I touched on this phenomenon, if you will, when I spoke with you a couple weeks ago. We are expecting a significant amount of premium pricing on this bond issue, and that's when the bond underwriter will essentially pay you more than $1 for every dollar of bonds in order to have a higher face interest rate on those bonds. They believe that that makes it easier to sell the bonds, trade the bonds in the market, as well as for future investors to then sell the bonds in the secondary market. Ultimately, all we care about is the yield on the bonds. What is your true borrowing cost? And so we want to give the underwriters latitude to propose whatever kind of premium pricing and whatever kind of interest rates they want. And we can figure out what is the lowest overall borrowing cost for the county. That's really bottom line what matters. We don't know how much premium we'll get with the competitive sale. You can see in the numbers that are attached to the presale report that we are assuming about $6.4 million of premium. That could be higher, that could be lower, and we will adjust the final bond amount accordingly, ultimately to net out the $291 million. That's the target for this financing.
And he's on page, I think, 248 of your board packet in that area. Yep,
Is that one there? 249?
249.
249.
A couple of other points. This bond issue will have an estimated term of about 29 and a half years, so it will be under the 30 years that was forecast, just based on the timing of when you're collecting the revenues versus issuing the bonds and repaying the bonds. These bonds will have a call feature, so any date after December 1 of 2036, you will be able to prepay the bonds or refinance the bonds, and that's not a one-shot deal. The county and the county board at that time can call bonds multiple times between then and the end of the bond term, or also refinance if interest rates prove amenable to that. So ultimately, this is fixed rate financing, but only you get to decide if and when to refinance or to speed up payments based on the lost revenues that are available. We are anticipating a credit rating of AA+ for the county. That is the next to very best rating you possibly can get, which is AAA. And I don't see any concerns or difficulties in obtaining that rating from S&P for this bond transaction. So that will bode very well for your attractiveness in the market, and we expect quite a few bidders from around the country taking an interest in this bond issue. And to that point, this will be a competitive sale. I think we covered that briefly the last time I spoke with you, but we'll be taking bids at our offices on Monday, April 20th. We'll be determining who has the best overall bid. We'll do some resizing to, again, dial in the $291 million of project funding based on the winning bid. And then we'll be back to you the next morning on the 21st of April for consideration of the winning bid.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Bertram.
on the bidding process, I assume there's some vetting, certain criteria that have to be met by the bidders.
Mr. Chair and Commissioner Bertram, yes. All of the bidders have to be essentially accredited and nationally recognized underwriting firms with the wherewithal to actually follow through on buying the bonds and then selling them to their investors. In addition, they will be posting a good faith deposit equal to 2% of the bond amount, which is pretty hefty when you're thinking about $290 million, give or take, of bonds. And that's sort of a good faith deposit that they will follow through, and we never have problems with the underwriters that bid on these bond issues in actually getting to closing.
And Mr. Chairman, you do, I would assume you do a lot of $30 million bonds, schools,
Right.
city situations, things like that. I would assume the pool of bidders is going to be significantly less because of the size of the bond and because of that 2% requirement. So you're in a school bond, I'm just curious. I mean, would you get 10, 12, 20 bidders? This 5 if you're lucky?
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, actually, I would not be surprised if we got closer to 10 on this. I don't hold me to it. The market is somewhat unstable with world events right now. That is another thing we'll be monitoring closely between now and the sale day. But actually, these days, a lot of those school bonds are upwards of $200, $300 million. It's pretty hard to build a school for much less than that. Certainly, a lot of city bond issues are more in that $20, $30 million range or less. And one thing I would also note is that this bond issue will attract some of the sort of mega underwriters from New York City and other places that we often don't see on the $10 and $20 million bond issues. So the JP Morgans, the Bank of America, Merrill Lynch's, some of those really big dogs, if you will be taking an active interest in this bond issue because their underwriting desks are just more situated to those multiple million, hundreds of million dollar bond issues. So you'll see some local firms involved, but also definitely national firms. The other thing I'll note is that you'll see, and I can describe this, or my colleague Dan can describe this on the sale, but a lot of times underwriting firms will form syndicates in which they'll work together to put forward the best possible bid. And so you might see a syndicate of 10 or 15 bond firms working together to put in a consolidated bid. And so even though we might only have, let's say 8 bids, there might be several dozen underwriting firms that are part of those respective bids.
Part of, Mr. Chairman, one of those bids.
Well, you
Or
can see
multiple.
multiple syndicates in multiple different bids. Yet usually one firm doesn't join multiple bids, but you could see many medium-sized firms joining any number of bids with other partners.
Commissioner Persky?
Yeah, Mr. Chair. Yeah, are they packaged together? In other words, are there like $50 million packages that are being distributed, or is it all going to be one bid? How?
Mr. Chair and Commissioner Persky, it will be all one bid. And so the underwriter that wins the bonds will win the whole $290 million.
Okay.
But then different underwriters, maybe that are part of their syndicate, will have an interest in different parts of the 30-year bond issue. So, Piper Sandler, which is based here or in New York, might want some of the longer bonds. Wells Fargo or RBC might want some of the middle-term bonds. And so they figure out within themselves whose investors want which part of the bond issue. And then what's great about that is that they all have different relationships with different investors, right? And so how the county benefits is by putting it out, whoever has the best overall bid, you guys figure out, how you're going to get it sold into the investor market.
Okay.
Yep. Mr. Chair, I won't go through a whole lot more details unless you want me to talk about arbitrage, which we're taking care of, working with Randy and Sarah and making sure that you can invest these proceeds at the highest possible yield, while also making sure that we don't run afoul of the IRS. Taft is the law firm that prepared the resolution in front of you. They'll be working on the official statement with us as well as your team, and then preparing the resolution to award the bonds in April. And again, I mentioned S&P. We will be talking with S&P actually on, I think it's the 2nd of April. We just set that date. So if you go to the debt issuance schedule really quick, you can see we're here today on March 10th. For the presale review, we'll be doing due diligence calls and calls with the rating agency again on April 2nd, I believe. Distributing the official statement the next week. We'll have the rating in hand right around that time. And then again, we'll sell the bonds on your behalf on the 20th, come to your board meeting, on the 21st, and then look to close the bond issue on May 14th. I've also included a few debt schedules. Again, I would just note, if you go to the last one, which doesn't look like the other ones, this is our cash flow analysis that we continue to update with your team here at the county, comparing the projected lost revenues to the debt service on the bonds. And you can see that based on our estimates, which will hopefully prove to be conservative, i.e. high, in terms of the debt service, you don't run a deficit at any point. You have ample lost revenues in hand and collected each year to pay that debt service, and then build a surplus that you could potentially use 4 or 5 years before the final maturity to pay off the remaining bonds. So that would be a great thing if that came to pass right around 2050, and you could retire the sales tax at that time. Why don't I stop there and ask if you have any questions before we turn to the resolution?
Any questions? Commissioner Bertrand?
Mr. Chairman, not a question, but I shared with you at the EMC legislative conference when you and I had a chance to talk, and I'll say this many, many times, the amount of expectation from you and the team, everybody, at least from this member, and I assume the board, but they can speak for themselves, is extremely high. I've never done this before. And I don't care how many times you've done it before. I don't care about any of the other projects, but this one, at this point. So my faith in you and staff is high, and it needs to be. And my expectation, again, speaking personally, of all of you is extremely high. Because if this doesn't go well, it's not a disservice, it's a disservice to the board, but it's a disservice to the residents. And I trust you, I trust our staff, I trust the people that are going to be following everything, but I'm going to keep saying that because in my mind, the minute you let your expectation down, things can go wrong. And we don't want surprises, we don't want things to go wrong. Everything that we've encountered has gone relatively well, and we've adapted and dealt with what we needed to deal with along the way. But these are all very, very significant decisions, and I take them very, and again, speaking for myself, the Lord can speak for themselves, I take it with great responsibility. I don't do this easily. I mean, this weighs on me because ultimately the buck will stop with us. You know, if something goes wrong, we can blame you or somebody else, but it's going to land on our laps, and it should. And so again, I'd be remiss in not saying what I shared with you privately and what I'll keep sharing. My expectation of all of you is extremely high because I've never done this before. I'm not involved in the details, and I don't know how to go about this. And so you need to rely on people that you can trust. And if Randy and Sarah say you're a good partner in this, that means a lot to me. But again, even on them, the expectation is high. So for what it's worth, I'll keep doing what we're doing, and if you need to make a mistake or something, do it with some other bond letting. Don't do it
So
This is on page 241, correct?
just one thing to respond to Jeff a little bit. So we did RFPs on fiscal advisors, and knowing this is a large, delicate, issue, and so we did move from who we were before to Ellers, because they have a pretty complete team that we had a lot of confidence in. So it was a very thought-out judgment to bring them in, so.
Commissioner Persky.
So with Commissioner Burton bringing that accountability up, I had a question with Randy the other day about the contingencies. And those contingencies to me are quite important. And I think Kevin has done a very good job of keeping his eye on things, and I would hope that that's going to happen. Because contingencies to me need to be obviously necessary. And we don't need to be spending those dollars just because it's flex money for the contractor or the person that's making those installations, whatever it is, those costs, and that we stay on top of those contingencies to make that they're very well warranted. That's a very concerning issue for me, because if you look at, nearly $300 million, there's quite a difference between a 5% contingency and a 10% contingency, and those are real dollars that we're concerned about. So, and I just trust, again, like Commissioner Bertram, I trust that we got the people that are going to be on top of that and watchful for that, because I would have no idea about what's going on, behind the doors. So, thank you.
And, go ahead, Randy.
Well, just to be clear, so we're not at 10% contingency.
Correct.
We're at 6.
Correct.
And, right, it is not an authority to spend or to expand the project.
Right.
Anything like that comes back to the board.
And those will be scrutinized, yeah.
Yes.
And I appreciate that.
Yep, go
Mr.
ahead.
Chair, one last thing before you consider the resolution in front of you. I did mention that the world is kind of volatile right now, and we're all aware of that. So far, the bond market is holding pretty steady. There's a lot of demand for municipal bonds as a relatively safe investment. The treasury market for U.S. treasuries, obviously, is a little more uncertain. They're not exactly tied together, although there is some correlation. Please know that we are monitoring that on a day-by-day basis. And if we see any storm clouds or anything that might merit a reconsideration of the timeline, we'll be raising that with Randy, Sarah, Mike, et cetera, for your consideration. One nice thing also is that you're doing the final project bids on April 7th. That gives us another touch point if things do deteriorate before we actually get to the bond sale on the 20th and 21st. So I just wanted to make sure you knew that is something we're hyper focused on, and if it makes sense to pause at any point, we would be the first ones to recommend that with some contingency plans.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is the resolution is on page 241, correct? Is that the one we're
Yep,
talking about?
241. Yep.
So I'm not sure if the board wants to act on all 14 or all 7 items at the end of that. We can do that. I think this is the end of the finance component. So before we cut Bruce loose, just make sure there's.
Or would we want to do this, approve this one right now, being
Yep.
Bruce is here?
Certainly can.
Okay. So we'd be looking for approval of the resolution. I'm assuming it's providing for the issuance and sale of $287,090,000 general obligation sales tax revenue bonds, Series 2026. Is that correct?
Yep.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Clark, second by Commissioner Johnson. Further discussion? Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We look forward to hopefully seeing some good numbers.
Yeah. Mr. Chair, the next action is a resolution that alters the signing authority or creates a little different signing authority for the project. Really to keep the project moving along and continuing your trust in staff here as you've been talking about. But under a normal project, the threshold for change orders that would need to come to the board is $175,000. We think that's a little too small for this project, and it could end up, holding things up if we have to wait 2-3 weeks to do a change order. Hopefully, we won't have many that are of this size, but we just want to be cautious. And so what this resolution does, and if you look to the last bullet in it, it does say that there will be oversight by myself and the auditor treasurer or the procurement manager for anything that's over 175, but that the board would allow change orders up to $500,000 as long as they don't exceed 5% of the initially approved contract. And if you look back to the third bullet part on the first page, it says that these change orders cannot fundamentally change the scope of the project, which is what Randy was getting at there. We're not going to, add rooms or things like that, or that really alters the scope without board approval. And then the last one is exigent situations, which in Kevin and my mind are really emergencies, like a building's going to fall down or something like that. Or if it's really going to show some significant costs, that would fall into this category too. So that's an overview of that resolution. Like I say, hopefully we're not approving change orders that are of that size. If we do, they will come back to the board so that we can review them with you and get approval, basically after the fact, I guess.
Commissioner Clark?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just want to acknowledge to the public what was put in the board packet. There was something that needed to be modified. It had two different numbers. So knowing that you got that to us, that it is be up to 500,000 for that in between, I'll go ahead and move adoption of the resolution delegating signing authority as specified in the updated proposed resolution.
Mr. Chair, thank you, Commissioner Clark. Just full disclosure, what was recommended to me was the million, and I altered this down to half a million. So.
Thank you for that.
Get a second, we can have a discussion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll second it. And
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
I believe I saw something in it that when and if that were to happen, you'll immediately inform the board that it did happen. And then secondly, all of us, I think, need to be flexible when and if circumstances do come up over the 500,000, we need to meet. I mean, I hope the expectation of the board is we don't have to wait until our scheduled meetings. We can Zoom, we can do whatever we need to do, but a project this size, we need to keep moving, we need to be flexible, and I think we need to be prepared to meet out of our normal board to accommodate timing. So again, just to say that out loud and ahead of time that we know that.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Bertram, that's a good point. There could be a time where we need to have a quick meeting to make a decision.
Okay, Commissioner Persky?
And then there's the understanding that, again, we're staying with the plan that was proposed, the design that was proposed. However, I do want to think that we do maybe still have the opportunity during construction, if we see an opportunity to make a greater investment where there's a huge benefit. Let's say it's with the shooting range or the storage shed or something, we say, gosh, we missed this, we should add this. By all means, we make that improvement, that instead of looking and come back and say, we should have done this, all right? So I want that to be understood as well.
And that would be a change. It sounds to me like that would be a change in the scope, and that would definitely come back to the board for the discussion.
Yep.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the resolution? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay.
Next item we have on the list is during the bidding process, we had 10 alternates, 9 were mandatory, and 1 was a voluntary alternate. We can go through each of those if you would like, or if you would like, I don't know how far you got into the list that was provided to you, but each of those come with a recommendation from the staff as to accept or reject them. Were there specific questions that you had, or would you like me to go through the entire list?
I read through them. I don't know if everybody else did, but I'm comfortable unless somebody else would like.
Mr. Chairman, I think I'm sure we all read through them. And then my understanding was your recommendation is at this point, and it could change on some of these based on other things happening. So it made sense to me currently what you're suggesting to be changed and not to be changed. Again, with the caveat that if something changes, we'll revisit that again.
A good example of that is probably alternate 1, which might not be, is the granite facade on the front of the building. I think staff is saying we should reject that as an option, but we want to leave the option open that there might be more impactful areas to use stone on the building or in the building, and that might be something that we would come back to the board with as a potential opportunity.
And that, Mr. Chairman, is a good example. So I'm comfortable with what you're recommending at this point.
Okay, so we'd be looking for a motion then to,
So move.
I'll second.
okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Johnson, second by Commissioner Bertram. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Mr. Chairman, I'm thinking we should at least deny one of these just to get you back on your toes a little bit. We'll see. You're having a good morning so far.
The next item on the list is entering into an agreement with Stearns Electric, who is the electric provider for the site, for them to start their work related to providing electrical service to the site. Their piece was to make sure that they can provide electric, and they are charging us upfront for those services instead, so that we could use the sales tax dollars to fund that rather than doing it through revenue or where they would capture it through billing over the period of time. So I believe you have the document in front of you. We are looking to work with Stearns to have more or less an electrical loop on the site and being able to gain access to those different buildings and different access points on the property with them doing the infrastructure work.
I think we're on page 264, I believe.
Correct.
Yep, okay.
Okay,
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Clark.
I move authorization, we approve authorization of staff to enter into agreement with Stearns Electric for the site electrical utilities.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a
Second.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Bertram. Further discussion?
Again, Mr. Chairman, this is obviously a huge undertaking. It's a little different to do that up front, isn't it, on projects? Not for us, but I mean like Stearns Electric, when they've done large projects like Finger Hut back in the day, and I don't think they did it that way, but this is obviously a lot bigger project, and with the sales tax in play, that makes it a little unique. Is that accurate?
I can act, maybe Pete from Contegrity can speak to that.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Bertram, yes, correct. Years back, a lot of those services were provided. As of late, though, to get the infrastructure into the site, typically the incoming line and the transformer is a billable cost for most. This is a little bit greater just with the size of service we are bringing in, the immensity of the project. So it's a pretty typical process for public utilities out there now.
I remember back in the day when the pumping station went in north of Albany, that was on a Stearns Electric, and that was the same thing, because you had to build a substation, so it's either that or you raise the rate for a long period of time to recoup the cost. And I think this is a good advantage point because it limits the sales tax, which is a huge savings up front.
Mr. Chairman, if you live long enough, back in the day, what the Excel and Stearns Electric would be fighting, who's going to cover the area, going not that far back within my lifetime, and I was involved in a couple of those, but that's not the case.
I think there was a discussion with this one, but. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Now we have a number of contracts to review and seek approval on and awarding for the bids. The first two contracts are, the first contract is with KFI Engineering, who we went through a selection process for commissioning of equipment for the new facility. I don't have the exact number that information was on the 266. But they are the selected vendor for commissioning all of our equipment on the site. The next contract is with surveying with KLD, who would be doing our site survey. They've done some work for the project already with the plotting and are familiar with the project. And then the additional next contract is with Elk Creek Consulting. Elk Creek Consulting had partnered with KA and Integrity during the design development phase. They provided expertise with the Department of Corrections and the jail specifically. This contract would be for them to provide assistance, technical assistance to the county directly for transitional services as we get closer to being able to occupy the building. Little backstory on that is every policy that we have has to be written and then has to be reviewed internally by staff, but then also reviewed by the Department of Corrections. Elk Creek Consulting, the owner, Chris Toma, was part of the large jail construction project and then worked for the Department of Corrections and was in charge of overseeing the construction rule review. So he brings a unique set of skills to the project and this will allow us to not assign we will be assigning additional staff to the transition team, but this would limit that by one person by partnering with him. Those are the contracts for services that the county is going to be providing before we would move into bid awards. Were there any questions on those pieces or those contracts?
I didn't have any. Nobody else? Nope.
All right. Then we have a list of bid awards. I can run through these. Approving the contract for the work scope 03A concrete and 03B concrete paving to K. Johnson. And awarding the approved contract for work scope 03B structural and architectural precast to Wells Concrete. Awarding and approving contract for work scope 05A structural steel to Ben's Structural Fabrication. Award and approve the work scope 13A detention cells and equipment to NOAA Detention Construction. Award approved contract work scope 23A HVAC to McDowell Company. And award and approve contract for combined base bid of work scope 26A building electrical and 26B exterior electric and 26C fire alarm system to Design Electric. And supporting
last one?
documents were in the pack that you received.
Mr. Chair, can we
So-
do these as a group?
Yeah, I believe we can do them as a group.
I believe so.
But I was just wanted to clarify, at the last meeting, I think it was Kevin mentioned that you were having a meeting with the two lowest bidders, just to make sure nobody missed anything. I'm assuming that occurred.
Kevin and I and the construction management team met with, I believe, all of these bidders for sure that are on these lists, and we're getting close to having met with all of them.
Okay.
But yes, we've met with all of these to ensure that they've had everything that they expected or the construction management expected to be in their work scopes and have confidence in that, yes.
Okay. Commissioner
Mr.
Bertram?
Chairman, and remind me how that process works. So you've got a bid. Now, when we get these bids, and we're going to approve the bids, who sees them first? You and Kevin? Then who's involved at what point? Just on all of the ones that we're going to consider.
Mark from Kraus Anderson will provide that information.
Good morning,
Good morning.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Yeah, the process was an electronic process. All of the bidders, so we reached out to over 600 firms in our collective database and Contegrities. And we received 255 that I think Kevin.
Mark, you want to just pull that microphone over a little bit?
And Mr. Chairman, just, I don't want to waste your time, but specifically when we approve these bids, so when the bid comes forward.
Correct.
And now you're going to move forward on that bid, who sees it first, who recommends it? Is it a team? Is it steps? That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, so it was a true public, it was an electronic public opening.
Right.
So everybody that was in the room, that was watching the simulcast, you'll call it, saw all of these openings. And then we, Kraus Anderson had a representative, we read every single bid in the order that, in the number received by work scope. And what we did is then we published all of that public data. And then we went and met with the first low and second low, usually. And we have a pre-made post-bid interview, kind of a questionnaire. Obviously, in public bid, it is really, there's their bid, and you have to assume that they've covered all the work. Well, sometimes that doesn't happen, and what we're looking for is holes. Or if we see a very low number and then 4 ones that are all bunched together, then you kind of say, well, maybe that first one might be missing something. Let's go try to find out.
So, Mr. Chairman, when you say we, who's we?
We was Kevin and Mark and myself and a representative, usually Pete from Contegrity, were in those meetings.
Got it.
Yeah. So it was a collection of our team. And then, yeah, we go through this, we send out a form and they check it all off and then send it back. And it's kind of a softball type question. And then we go back through our work scopes, we go back through the specifications, and we go back through any other documents that they provided with their bid. So, and through that, we can pretty well find none of these had those issues of this first group of 10 that you're seeing today. But if they did have an issue, we would kindly say, well, it looks like you're missing 3 out of these 4 spec sections. And our goal was not to reject them. Our goal was for them to understand that they may have made a mistake and pull their bid so that we got the proper price for the proper scope and became the.
So, Mr. Chairman, when you say they pulled their bid, it's off consideration at that point?
Correct. They would have withdrawn it. Yeah. It's just, it makes life a little easier if they withdraw their bid than if we have to go reject it.
And, Mr. Chairman, to date, that has not happened with these.
Not with the list that we have
Those
today.
10 that you have in front of you, no, they were very clean. And I would just say that every one of them except NOAA Detention is a local firm, which is really great.
Yep.
Commissioner
But it was a
Johnson?
good process. It was followed consistently. I know that Heather, hi Heather, was in some of those conversations, or at least being kept up to date and communicated with through the process.
Commissioner Johnson?
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to point out that on January 14th, there was a meeting of all kinds of people with instructions about how the bidding should work out at the service center, and I went out there to watch. I wasn't going to bid on anything. But it was very well organized, very detailed, so all of those vendors, if you will, really had an opportunity to understand what needed to be done and hopefully to do it all right. And I think,
Yeah, and it was.
I think that was a
We
good
did it
start.
twice, just to make sure.
Yeah.
And yes, there's probably a half a dozen that are still, one person submitted a check for a bid bond. And it's like, well, we can't take a check for a bid bond. And now what do we do with this thing we've got in our hands? We have to return it. So, yep, just sorting through those things. But I think having that community involvement, explaining the process as well as you could to as many people that would listen was very, it also got some excitement in the project and allowed us to have a good bid day.
And I think it's important to know, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, that Kevin and I participated in a lot of those. I participated not knowing a lot about some of these subject areas, but it did allow me to understand that, or have a better level of comfort that the contractor knew what it is that they had bid on, and that they were covering all the things that we've been talking about needing to be in the project for the last couple of years as we designed and built it, and gave us a level of comfort as we brought this list to you that we feel confident in those contractors.
Sounds good. So then at this point, we'd be looking at number 6 and 7, approve contracts for owner-provided services, and then award these contracts.
Yes.
Okay, would somebody care to make that
I'll
motion?
make a motion that we approve the contracts for the owner-provided services as well as all the various work scopes.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Johnson. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Bertram. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the good work. Okay, that covers everything as far as the jail justice center.
It does.
Can we, we'll take a 5-minute break here.
Thank you.
Before we go into the last item.
That's all the information from
Meeting back to order. Because we have a workshop after this, and we're already a little behind, we will move the airport agenda item to either our next meeting or one of our next meetings. And with that, we will go to issues by commissioners. Commissioner Bertram, would you care to start?
Sure. We had a good week, I think, last week, the delegation at the St. Paul with the AMC legislative days. Certainly learned a lot, met with a lot of people. I think that was all well. Couple things that Kaneohe County had their rifle shotgun public hearing last night, and one of the commissioners shared with me this morning that they had about 80 people there. A lot of dialogue. Not everybody spoke, but certainly, hopefully, will help us prepare for ours. They didn't vote.
Oh,
Yeah, they just had the public hearing. Again, however we want to handle this, but Mike's mentioned the federal lobbying RFP. I think at some point in his administrative report, I don't know if we should have that on the board to have a discussion, but I think we should discuss that before we issue the RFP. So I don't know how you want to handle that. This is what you said at the beginning of the meeting, so do we get a consensus that we want to talk about it and then do it, or however? But I think we should talk about it before we release the RFP. That's my opinion. You talked about the
maybe before you jump to
Sure.
that, is that something we could put at least on the next agenda so we address it sooner than later?
I think that's what the board wants to do by
You guys okay with
motion
that?
or consensus.
I think it's time just to get it
And
out.
we are prepared to issue the RFP because that's the action the board took.
Right, we took the action to go ahead and do it.
And
And I
that's
think
why I
it's-
was saying if we,
And I think, Mr. Chairman, I think something's changed since then, and that's why I think we should rediscuss it. That's my request, so how we get there, that's up to the rest of you.
Mr. Chair, I would rather have a discussion about it. In fact, Commissioner Bertram, it scares me because I've got those two items on my issues by commissioner.
Well, yeah,
And
it scares
so-
me more, but I was
Okay,
first. so
but
I-
I think, yeah, because we also heard from the sheriff and from Janelle too about their wishes, and I don't know, I think we're all over the place as far as where we want to go with the issue, so I think we should have some discussion on it.
Okay, if we have consensus, would we have time at the next board meeting? I'd rather address it sooner than later.
well, if there's a motion or consensus, yes, I mean, the board already took action, and so that's
Right.
where
We
we're
undoing
heading.
our action.
And if we
But
make the
technically,
motion,
what you should
we
do is
it now?
rescind that action, is what you
Oh.
should do.
Mr. Chairman, then I make a motion that we rescind the recommendation on the RFP for the federal lobbying.
Okay, we
And
have
I'll
a
second
motion,
that.
and we have a second. Further discussion? Commissioner Clark?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I will be voting against this. We already have spent a lot of agonizing and excruciating time. We haven't had any kind of an updated contract in a very long time, and I just think we should be moving forward on it, and then we can make a decision about whether we have any contract at all versus something else.
Commissioner Johnson?
Mr. Chair, I am tempted to vote against it, but I don't know what has changed. Maybe I've missed some communication, but I don't know what has changed since we authorized the RFP.
And Mr. Chairman, for me, one, I think there was some hesitancy through the RFP process and everything, but for me, I did not know the sheriff and the county attorney had such strong feelings. So that's majorly new information for me. I never saw that until we got, and when we got that, plus there was some hesitancy, I just thought we maybe should relook at this, because when you go out for an RFP, prior to you really wanting to do that, that signals something, number one. Number two, it could increase the cost of the lobbying contract. So before I like to walk down the hill rather than run down, so that's why I'm made the motion.
Commissioner Johnson?
Mr. Chair, I saw the notes from the county attorney as well as the sheriff, and I think their input is very valuable. I am assuming that everyone has the opportunity to respond to the RFP, including the incumbent consultation group. And I'm looking for a fresh view of all the possibilities, and I don't think we can get it without an RFP.
And Mr. Chairman, the only hesitancy is that it will cost more if we go for the RFP, even if we keep doing what we're doing. We've been told that very directly. So again, I don't have a preconceived decision, but I think we got to be careful how we're going through the process.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Clark.
Yeah, I think, I agree with Commissioner Johnson. We are not getting the services that are outlined in the RFP. And so the question is, will they respond to it and what would it cost? So I think it's really important from a business practice that we are checking in. And, I could go on with a bunch of ands right now from including when we were in DC, but I will not do so right now.
Commissioner Johnson.
Mr. Chair, I just want to be clear. I didn't say we weren't getting the services.
Nope.
I said that everyone should have an opportunity to respond to the RFP, and we should have an opportunity to see what's new in that whole arena and what the possibilities are. And
Yeah, to clarify, I was saying what's in that RFP is not what we are currently receiving from a service standpoint. That's all I was saying.
So it maybe for my clarification, so realistically, to rescind it or to move it to another meeting, the risk we have now is basically if we do the RFP, the price could change, realistically.
Mr. Chairman,
Right.
we've been told it will change.
Yeah.
And we've seen the preliminary, we already got numbers before we even did an RFP, and those changed, and we were told that the current agreement would change.
And Mr. Chair, that we also know there's some others out there that are interested in doing the services for that same amount. So until we put something out, we don't really know what is going to be responded to.
Because my other thought too, well, I mentioned this before, is, we have other entities close to us where, sometimes we could consolidate our reach and not all be independent when it comes to this stuff. Do we need to spend that much money if we're finding out that our staff people are doing a lot of the legwork?
Mr. Chair, what you're alluding to is I am agreeing with, is that we're all over the places for what we want and what we need. And before we put out the RFP, I think we should kind of take a look at what it is we actually want and how we're functioning before we go to use a lobbyist and how we utilize that lobbyist. So again, before you put your sails on and put the boat in the water, you have to have a port, you have to have a destination in mind. And so I don't think we're there yet that we even know what we want. And so looking at things from not even having a lobbyist, what some of folks even think maybe that's our opinion, that we can do it and handle most of that on our own, to having an extravagant contract that's going to be twice or three times the amount that we're paying at this time. It doesn't make sense for us, I think, to go forward if we don't know where we're going.
Commissioner Birch.
My goal in making the motion is that we didn't debate it during issues by commissioners. So I think an
All right.
agenda item would be appropriate.
The horse is dead, is that what you're saying?
That's nicely what I'm saying.
Okay, all those in favor of rescinding the previous motion to put the federal lobbyists out on RFP, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Roll call.
Commissioner Clark,
Nay.
Commissioner Persky,
Aye.
Commissioner Bertram,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson,
Nay.
Commissioner Notch,
Aye.
passes 3-2.
Okay, motion passes 3-2.
So getting back to my issues by commissioners, the Apex Clean Energy, Bear Paw Wind, you brought up in your administrative report, you said if there's a flavor for hearing from them, that we could. They're going to be leasing 33,000 acres in Stearns County. The bulk of it's going to be in Commissioner Notch's district. He's met with them. I've met with them. I do think a project, 50 wind towers, 33,000 acres, I think would be respectful to have a 15-minute overview before the board. We can't do anything. We can't approve it or deny it. That's not the goal. But I think we all would want to know that that's going on in Stearns County and get a report from them. And I thought Melrose would be the best place because that's where it's happening. It's going to be basically from Lake Henry through Sauk Center is going to, they've already got 10,000 acres committed to the 33,000 acres that they need for the 50 towers. So again, don't know if we need a motion for that, but you said you want some direction if we should hear from them. I think we should hear from them, and I think the Melrose meeting would be a good place to hear from them. So I don't know how you want to do that.
I'm not hearing any objections, so.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the Housing Trust Fund Board, just because I sit in that, we're having a meeting, we've got clear direction, we need to come to terms with that. Bob was, just for the other members, Bob was a member before he was elected commissioner. Now he's a commissioner, so the Housing Trust Fund, now we have 3 commissioners, and we've been told we can't have that. So it's got to be 2 commissioners. So that's got to be figured out somehow.
Or, Mr. Chair, we need to change the ordinance. I mean, it's one or the other.
Right. And I think.
You could do that.
Yeah, we could, but I really don't think there's a need for that. I think most county, normally what we do is we did a metro member and a rural member. I'm the rural member. I'm on the HRA board, which is a separate board. But basically, I think Commissioner Johnson, Commissioner Clark could figure out which one wants to serve and then go from there. But anyway, we do need to deal with it because we got a meeting coming up, and I think Neil feels a little uncomfortable because we've got 3 commissioners on it at this point. So however you want to handle that. I think that is it.
Okay. Commissioner Persky?
I just wanted to comment and ask about the shotgun rifle issue coming up and, having the information that we need in making that decision. I think at last meeting, we talked about the emails. We now have a place for them, if folks are interested, that they can actually email us, correct?
Yeah, it's deer hunt ordinance at stearnscountymn.gov.
Correct. But what about accumulating all the other ones that we personally received?
If you send them to us, then we're accumulating them.
But what I'm concerned about, Mike, is that we send them to you, you're going to get 5 of them from all of us. Okay, could we just put the name on the subject, the name of the author? That way, when you can see that we already have that one. I'm just going to suggest that.
Yeah, well, we'll sort them out.
All right.
We won't duplicate
Because I
one
might
5
have
times.
40, 50 of them,
right.
so,
Yeah.
you're going to get them, all right?
Most of mine have been coming to all of us, so I haven't sent them to you.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, is that.
I'm
We'll
not
figure
sending
that
them.
out. We
Okay.
want to make sure we get them all, so forward them.
Okay.
All right.
Commissioner Clark?
Yeah, a few things. Briefly, there is a proposal by one of the legislative caucuses to put levy caps on counties, county boards, without changing any mandates that we know are about to come through. We obviously take our our fiduciary duty extremely, that's an area we're strong in. And so it's a little bit disappointing that when we were at the Capitol last week, we weren't hearing this from our delegation. And so I think as we continue to be moving forward, we're going to want to talk about that because we won't be able to meet the mandates if this would happen. Now, it might not happen. It's an election year for everybody, and it could be that there's some posturing, but given how great they've all been with us, I think continuing to talk with them. The House Senate Tax Committee had a good conversation, and now yesterday, Ways and Means was going to with regard to property taxes, counties, and the modernization and human services. So there's some interesting work there. Just because somebody put something out there doesn't mean it will pass, but it does mean when you have one caucus proposing it, we have to take it seriously. And then on the shotgun rifle, I would still ask for the public, not for us. We're all doing our due diligence, so that we have some way to either have a presentation at that meeting and/or a handout or something else so people have some information that relates to data or why this got put in, because there is so many strong emotions right now. I believe we're going to try hard not to have, we can't possibly have a decision based on emotions anyways, because there's just lots of strong emotions. But we need to have some way some way or place that people who are really interested and might be confused, and again, have strong feelings about the way they've always hunted, for them to get that information. So perhaps some of the information you've given to us, Dr. Williams, or or something else.
Okay, Commissioner Johnson.
I'm going to forego my one item because it might generate too much conversation. I'll do it next time.
Okay.
We got something to look forward to.
And I know Commissioner Bertram mentioned he met with Apex. There's also another one out there, Leeward Renewable Energy, going in the same area south of Freeport. So there's potentially two different ones that could be looked at. Otherwise, I will adjourn the meeting and we'll go into our work session.
Oh, yeah, you did. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's a fake background, Mr. Chair.
Here's Give me that stop. Give me that stop. Stop it. Stop it. Why is it? Why is it? Why is it? Okay, hold on.
Good morning, everybody. I am in a Hampton Inn hotel in Golden, Colorado, and the background is fake because if you have the real background, it's just a wall right behind me. So I apologize if it's a little dark, but I'm ready to go. So thanks for your time this morning. I have three objectives. One is provide an overview of the document that was created. Two, to brief the contents of the document. And three, answer any questions that I can provide. And as Mike just said a moment ago, is the purpose of this conversation is to provide direction to staff to take the next steps to bring it back for further